Oliver, welcome to the podcast. Looking forward to our conversation. I'll give a quick introduction about our community and then we'll learn a little bit about you and then we'll dive into our conversation here. Lexic Mind, our community, we started as a grassroots effort to really get an understanding about dyslexia and more focused on individuals and asking and learning from them as to, how dyslexia works for them and how they've been navigating world, right? So far, we've talked to individuals from different paths in life, from mothers or parents who have dyslexic kids to adults who are navigating dyslexia and in the workplace to academics. So all this is to just build a community to share with each other. And also our goal is to really showcase and break that stigma around neurodiversity. Right, because I think overall there's a value that we bring, and being different is a good thing. But there's this stigma, right? Everything from even when you're applying for a job, you have to, a note. There's a question right there, like, do you have a disability? And and oftentimes dyslexia is put into that bucket. And our goal is to, break through that. I think there's more to offer, and also remove the stigma, and also have the support system. So that's our goal, and that's our North Star in our community with Lexic Minds. But with that said, we'll jump into our conversation. And if you could just give a quick intro about yourself and your journey, that'll be good.
Well, personally, thank you very much, Kashi, and thank you for organizing this and all the work that you're putting into this movement and this organization. I think this is absolutely awesome, and it's so needed. And as far as the check mark on the job application form, I would absolutely love to see that check mark as an advantage, as a dyslexic thinking, hey, you know what, I do have superpower strengths and I am willing to share that, and I'm wanting to share that with this company and allow it to destigmatize the dyslexic individual and use it as an empowering mechanism to drive forward. So thank you very much for all that. Yeah. So I'm Oliver Moloney. I've got a bit of a background as an entrepreneur, worked in the railway industry for 20 years in train operations. I have also been in the emergency services as a volunteer and part-time firefighter for 20 years, and I've moved my way up the chain of command. And my present position now with the fire department is of chief of training. So I handle all the training and development of the firefighters for the fire department of Mon. It's a smaller city department, all composite, paid on call.
Yeah, let's start from the beginning, right? I'm sure you noticed there was something different, right? Let's go back to that point and share your journey. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So starting off, I was very fortunate that my mother was dyslexic. Unfortunately, she didn't have the resources and the help, when she was growing up, to understand that she was dyslexic until she became older, and she had that guidance later on in life. But it was a lot of trouble for her through school. When I went to school, junior kindergarten, it was evident right at the onset that I was not progressing at the rate and the speed of the other class. I was behind a lot. And I wanted to do things my way, and they had the systematic way of doing things. And I very quickly got pigeonholed into, well, the rest of the class is going to move ahead, and Oliver's going to, he's going to go to the special other class, and it's not going to really move at all. And so my mom said, I don't think so, and pulled me out of school and homeschooled me. She understood at that point in time that, there was a high likelihood I had learning disability or I was dyslexic. There's definitely something going on. She really didn't know anything about homeschooling, so she was a trailblazer in that time. Homeschooling was not a popular thing. It was you're almost shunned for removing a child and putting out of a systematic education and putting them into this homeschooling regime, I guess. Mom was able to give me the support, the guidance, the education necessary to overcome a lot of my reading comprehension problems at a younger age. Little things like, I love trains right from a young age. My dad was a locomotive engineer, and I absolutely love trains. So a lot of the reading was train-based. So it would be books on trains, things that I was interested in, things that I was passionate about. So I wanted to learn about them. and were able to knock off a lot of the basic English language skill sets at the same time. And I was able to progress that way. Mathematics, same thing. I still struggle to this day. A common myth is that dyslexia is just really reading comprehension. Well, it really actually affects a number of things, and math is one of the other things it affects. I was horrible at math. I still am horrible at math. But again, Mom was able to create scenarios where it was railway-based mathematics, and I was able to excel. So she was able to get my education under control, and I had my own path, and I was able to get off the ground and start progressing forward academically. Mix this with a little bit of entrepreneurial stuff from my dad, who enticed me to get out, and if I wanted to earn some money, it wasn't going to be through an allowance. It was going to be through mowing lawns. It was going to be through shoveling walks when it snowed, or shoveling driveways. And within a very short period of time, I had a number of clients. I was probably 7, maybe 10 years old, maybe 12. And I had a number of clients on the go for snow removal, cutting lawns. And then I also had a beer bottle collection business that I set up at the local marina. It was called Ollie the Bottle Boy. So I had set up these crates at the local marinas where I live in Perry Sound. It's a tourist town on Georgian Bay. So there's a lot of boat traffic comes in, even from the States. And so there's a lot of drinking that goes on, obviously, when they're tied up at shore. But most of those beer bottles, I found that they weren't bringing them back to the beer store because they didn't have a vehicle to go back to the beer store with. So all those beer bottles were winding up in the dumpster. So that was a problem that had to be solved. So it was put a couple of crates out there, paint them up, call myself Ollie the Bottle Boy, and I was able to make a pretty good living at about the age of 12 or 13 out those beer bottles.
That's excellent.
So yeah, we had a mix of Mom getting me on track with the with the dyslexia and the learning how to learn, because I think that's the biggest thing is you need to learn how to learn. Everybody needs to learn how to learn, but I think specifically dyslexia and dyslexic thinking, there's a real art to it. That and understanding, hey, I'm dyslexic. I don't think like everybody else. And that is a barrier that most people have to overcome. A lot of adults don't know throughout their entire lives that they're dyslexic. They just think, oh, I'm not good at reading, or I've struggled with this or struggled with that. And it's really hard to unlock the potentials of dyslexic thinking if you don't know you're dyslexic. And I think, this is part and parcel with the education and lexic minds that I think you're driving forward is sharing that knowledge so people can really dig in and say, hey, you know what? I am really good at this. I'm not so good at this. This needs work, but I am really good at this. And hey, there's a good chance I'm dyslexic.
Yep. So Oliver, on that, right? And I agree. Part of that is also saying it's okay, right? I'm not good at this. That's okay. Usually, that's not encouraged, right? At least for the generation that we are coming from, right? It's like figure it out or just shove it under the carpet and keep going, right? I like the statement you made, which is learn how to learn, because that encapsulates perfectly what everyone should kind of embrace here. Is there any tips or any things that you've taken out of from your early stages and then fast forward even to your career now, right? What are some of the things about learning how to learn that you have taken and implemented?
Sure. When you're learning, you are the one learning. It's a you, Y-O-U, not anybody else. It's you. So learn at your own pace. I think that's the biggest thing, no matter what. And this is what systems get wrong, is that they try to group or herd learning. Learning's individual. It's not as a group. And so I think that's the first thing is you need to look and say, hey, I'm going to learn this at my own pace under my own terms. And so that's step one. Step two, like simple stuff. Don't move on until you've learned the basic stuff. So like when I read, oftentimes I will read the same paragraph 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times until I understand it. I don't guess on understanding it. I will read that paragraph until I fully understand it, or that page until I fully understand it. You have to be in control of that. And I think that's the biggest thing is you can't feel like you're being pushed. You can't feel, in systematic environments, there's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of drive in these classes. I can remember a lot of days in high school, because I went to high school from grade 9 to 12. And I felt very out of control in a classroom where there's deadlines, things were moving. I found, especially in English class, math class, I just couldn't keep up. They were moving at a rate that I just couldn't do it. I could not keep up to that systematic learning at that rate of speed. So I think the biggest thing is be in control of yourself, of your own learning, and find either organizations or mechanisms maybe that will allow you to advance at a very controlled rate that you're passionate about, but you're also gaining a lot of knowledge from, and you're adding value in
That makes
knowledge.
sense. Fast forward to now, have you adopted any tools or any other resources to aid you with reading or your day-to-day work-related items?
You know what? I'm not a big techie tool person, but I'm a visual learner. So oftentimes I will Google and YouTube. YouTube has been a tremendous resource where there's some really great people out there that puts a lot of exceedingly complicated stuff into visual form and explain it quite well. And so now you've got to weed through, is this completely right or is this not right, or, but for the most part, yeah, I'm generally turning to either Google or YouTube to.
Yeah, same here. I've been on the YouTube that's my go-to resource, right? First that, or like a podcast or something, because for me, visual, or then after that, like listening to something has been very useful. And from everything, right? For even to how to fix something, to even researching on something that's coming up, or a trend or whatnot, my go-to has been YouTube first, just because it just helps me retain information that much better. And frankly, even if I write something down, I can't read my own handwriting after the fact. So what's the point? So for me, it's like, okay, let's go on YouTube. And even if I had to watch that a couple of times, it'll stick.
Yeah. No, I'm exactly the same. And it's incredible, the stuff that, YouTube has out there now. It's an incredible resource. If it's there. It's there for the taking.
That's true. So just to fast forward a little bit to your current role, and you wear multiple hats here, right? Entrepreneur, and you're also a chief trainer. When I was doing the research on you, I saw one of the articles you wrote on LinkedIn, and it was on adult learning accessibility. Beautiful written, good article, and it advocates for individuals with neurodiversity there, right? If you could just unpack and a few things I was hoping you could provide your insights on. One, as you're going through as a lead instructor here, right, lead trainer, I'm sure you're coming into and interacting with individuals with different paths, different neurodiverse individuals, right, who may or may not know, and they might just have accepted the fact that this is how they are. How do you typically approach these scenarios, right? That's one. And the second part is, what are your thoughts in terms of what could, in this space, which is adult learning accessibility, what do you think what are some of the opportunities there that you think would really help catapult and support adults?
Okay, yeah. Firstly, the industries I work in, both the railway industry and the fire service industry, in my two primary industries, they're inundated with dyslexic thinking. I mean, a lot of dyslexic thinkers are generally not going to seek post-secondary educations. I think, the number that I most recently read was 1 in 5 children growing up are dyslexic now. And I think that number in the fire service is much higher, specifically the volunteer fire service, which I am, play a big part of. I'd probably be willing to say that number is actually more like 3 out of 5 individuals in the fire service working with firefighters are dyslexic. They are attracted to hands-on tasks, hands-on problem solving. They're not bookworms. Same with the rail industry. A lot of coworkers, within the train operations or, operations sector, generally are going to not have had any post-secondary education. A lot of the problems that I face, and I'll just talk about the fire service. is most individuals I come across that I suspect are dyslexic do not understand that they're dyslexic, and that's a tough conversation to have, to try to softly, one, identify if they are a dyslexic thinker, which for the most part I have a pretty good idea, because I can, the signs are generally pretty evident for me. I'm privy to all their testing, all their written work, so I know early on whether or not somebody's struggling scholastically. But to convey with them that this is a good thing, this isn't a bad thing, and what I try to do is I try to empower them and say, hey, you know what? I went down this road. I was not good at this. I failed in high school. I failed tests. I was a master at failing tests in high school. I had that dialed. Oftentimes, what I find is as adults, younger adults in their 20s and 30s, the individuals I deal with, when they fail a test, they take it very hard. It's not. And they take it hard because they think they're not standing up. They're not maybe at the caliber they should be operating at to be on that team. And I say, whoa, let's just back it up here a second. You are, outstanding firefighters. Bookwork isn't your thing, but there's ways that we can go about the theoretical training that will, one, you'll understand. Because I know that they understand what they're doing. They just have a tough time either writing the tests or learning the written material. But finding, I basically try to determine ways that we can make their learning more accessible and easier. But they have to understand that this is an area that they need to really look at, and they need to accept it. Better thing is embrace it. Embrace this opportunity. And it's really hard telling somebody, hey, you're not a great reader, but you know what? That's a good thing. And there's a whole lot of things, and there's a whole lot of reasons here as to why I'll tell you this is a good thing. And every individual is going to be different, but a lot of our people that are not good readers are generally really good problem solvers. They're really good critical thinkers. They're really good problem solvers. They're really good at pattern recognitions. And so what I generally try to do is I say, you're not this reading, we'll figure out this reading, but this is where you're knocking it out of the park. This is where I'm seeing time after time, you as an individual, you as a firefighter or what have you, you're really doing well here. So this we can work on. This isn't a big deal. And what I try to do is I try to downplay the reading comprehension so that it doesn't get them down. So it's not really an inflamed problem in their head. I try to focus on empowering through positivity and not worrying so much about the written stuff. The problem is a lot of, in the fire service and in railroading, we're still inundated with old systematic type learning. They say, a lot of them, they say, well, we're trying. And I think they are trying. I think a lot of railways are trying. A lot of fire departments, fire services are trying, the governments are trying, but they're just not quite there yet as far as accommodating for dyslexic learning or reshaping what systematic learning should look like. I mean, I
agree. I agree. Even talking to a few folks, that are not in your typical corporate track. Right. But who still have, similar to you, like my neighbor actually was a fire chief, right? And we're talking about that too. Then folks that are in the trade and industries, right? But still need to hold some sort of a certification license and need to renew, right? It's one of those things like, okay, in corporate, yes, it's still there's opportunity, but they're at least moving the needle a little bit there, right? But when I'm talking to others in these non-corporate kind of settings, there's some movement, but there's work to be done. And then the other part is kind of the audience there as well are not aware that there might be some form of neurodivergence there and how to best seek help. Right, or advocate for themselves. So I've seen that as a common trait here too. I'm hoping, positive movement and shining a light in these type of things would drive better systems, tools, and mechanisms for adults and individuals, but certainly work to be done there.
Sure. And I think this is something that I don't even want to say it's accommodation because it's not. This only benefits these organizations to determine who are dyslexic thinkers. Because if they can determine who these dyslexic thinkers are, they have the ability to retain, encourage promotion, encourage growth of dyslexic thinking in their organization. And what does that encourage? That encourages a whole raft of superpowers that you could essentially have within your organization. So instead of having them all at the very bottom because they can't pass a written test and they're subjected to being that blue collar worker for the remainder of their career because, well, they just can't pass that aptitude test to move on to the next level, which is a written systematic test that they're just not going to pass. Encourage them to move up, find ways of getting them into, more leadership type positions where they're able to be creative, really get down with problem solving. I know most dyslexics, including myself, I'm no exception here, love problem solving. I'm addicted to problem solving. I think it's like it drives my girlfriend crazy because everything is always a problem and that has to be solved. We just can't have a normal conversation. It's always a problem. How do we solve this problem? But that's the way my brain constantly thinks. It's like, okay, well, I'm just addicted to solving problems. I love it. And so I've constantly got to be doing something where I'm solving small problems and big problems. I love solving big problems. They're a lot of fun. But I find that there's a lot of lower ranking employees in organizations that are incredible problem solvers, but they just do not have, they're just being held down because of the systematic scholastic testing that's required currently in a lot of organizations to move into those ranks where they can really go to town and really make a positive difference for that organization in a big way.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife says the same thing to me. Even today, there was a conversation we had. My daughter brought something, and I went quiet for a bit, and she's like, "Don't say it. Don't say it," because for me, it's like my daughter and my wife are talking about something and they expected me to participate in it. And I'm quiet thinking about this. And she's like, "Don't go there."
Yeah.
So I could relate to everything what you're saying here. So just just moving on to about your role here, right? So part of your role, which is to train and support these individuals, it requires public speaking and presentations and all. I've personally had challenges, in my prior role. I had to do town halls and things like that. And my biggest challenge has been not public speaking, but actually reading from a prompter or reading from a presentation slide, right? Just because of the challenges. I was just curious from your side, how do you navigate that? And do you have any tips that you could share as to, when it comes time to it, like how to manage it and navigate it?
So I prefer to just kind of freewheel it. I generally don't like to read. If it is something, I'll just generally have point form. If I'm getting up to speak, it's generally something that I'm passionate about. So what I try to do is I try to block out the audience. I try not to allow the audience to control what's going to come out of my mouth. Just block them out. I passionately speak about about the subject or whatever that I'm teaching or I'm speaking about. And what I find is that I don't really make the hiccups that I would make if I felt like I was being judged by the individuals that were in front of me. That's a hard thing to overcome when you've got 50, 60 or 70 people in front of you or more, to not think about what they're thinking or how they're going to criticize you or whatnot. Another thing with dyslexia is oftentimes our English language may not be as up to par as other people. I find sometimes I've struggled putting words together, or I'll say the wrong words that just don't make any sense. I'll put a word in there that just totally doesn't make any sense at all. I'm going to do this. And you know what? You can't worry about the things that are going to happen. They're going to happen. You try to avoid it, but you have to laugh it off. So I think it's like, you know what? I have this attitude. It's like, get over yourself. You're never gonna be 100%. So you can try, but don't over criticize yourself. Laugh at your mistakes. Get up there. Smile. Smiling's contagious, and don't take yourself too seriously. You know what? if you're getting up to speak, then there's a reason for it. The people have shown up to listen to you speak. There's obviously you have aptitude. There's an obvious reason you're there. So focus on that and speak passionately. Don't try to make things up. Speak what's in your heart. Speak what's on your mind, and let it out. Be passionate, because that's going to naturally flow. If you're trying to talk about things you really don't know about, or if you're trying to talk about things that you don't really truly believe in, it's not gonna go as well. So I find dyslexics are incredible speakers more often than not, because we're just so excited. We get so excited about solving these problems, or exploring these new opportunities, or sharing our ideas or visions. And we can go on for hours talking, and it just leads from one thing to the next. But you have to speak from the heart. You have to really live it when you're up on stage. So that's what I have to share.
Yeah, that's really good tips and really good insights too, because I think that's helpful. Oftentimes folks focus on the content versus what needs to, that's just a supporting material, right? And what you say and what you have to convey the message is truly what is most important. So really good, and thank you for sharing that. Two more questions before we wrap up here. Broadly speaking, and looking for your thoughts on this, what do you feel like is missing in the workplace that could help support neurodiverse individuals?
Well, right now, I think specifically with most businesses, small to large organizations, what we're finding is that as pay increases for a lot of positions, there's a lot of tightening down of expenses right now. I think specifically, due to the financial times, obviously, I can't see that it's going away anytime soon. So what we're finding is, that each individual position is taking on more tasks. They're working more. A lot of jobs are becoming very, very task oriented in a lot of different industries, be it the government, be it, private sector. They're maxing out their human resources. And the problem for dyslexic thinking or dyslexic thinkers in that environment is that we don't do well in those task-oriented environments. We're open-minded thinkers. We're always trying to solve problems, and when we're part of an organization, we are constantly thinking of other things outside of our actual position. Generally, I think for most of us, we're always trying to solve the greater problem to make that organization run better, run smoother, grow. And I think a lot of our mindset is in that a lot of the time, and maybe not so much in the actual tasks that we're assigned to. So what I would like to see, and what I think a lot of businesses really need, is to allow for thinking time for all their employees. And I don't want to just pigeonhole dyslexic thinkers in this. I think that everyone should be allowed time to work on a side project. It's your time. But 5 or 10% of your work week is allocated to working on a side project that will benefit the company. And this is pride and ownership, buy-in. You want to look for retention? This is a great way to have retention in a company, is to have your individuals actually owning something rather than just doing task-oriented stuff. Have that pet project that they're working on that's going to better the organization. This is where dyslexic thinking really excels. Is they're able to identify a lot of things that maybe within the organization that other divisions might not necessarily see, because of their the superpowers, the critical thinking, and problem solving, and
they connecting the dots, right?
Dots, the pattern recognition. So I think organizations would be wise to do that, and I know that's a huge ask, but I think it's really important, and I think it's really important to allow your team the time to actually think and do something that they want to do. So
I agree. Well said. And also embracing the fact that it's going to be a journey as we go through this, right? There's going to be a lot of learning, but end of the day, there's going to be net positive by doing that, and just kind of embracing and going with it. In fact, for me, when you said thinking time, I literally had thinking time on Fridays, and I asked the team, don't block off my calendar. I blocked off my calendar, don't override that. And I've kind of done that, right? Or side projects, or enabling a team to kind of do that really helped, because you need to tinker with something outside your work, and that truly is going to benefit the company. And that's how we're wired, right? The bigger picture, solving or connecting those dots that are not connected and kind of going after it. So a really good perspective, and I could really relate to it. Thank you for sharing that. So with that said, just one last question, Oliver. First of all, this conversation has been extremely helpful. You've given practical advice, and also empowered and emphasized a lot of things that I'm pretty sure our audience are going through as well, and have given really actionable insights as well. So thank you for doing that. Do you have any parting thoughts to leave us with as we conclude this conversation?
Yeah, I think if you know you're dyslexic, if you know you're a dyslexic thinker, then don't try to hide it. I think that if you can get out there and help other people and spread the message, I think that's important. And we all don't need to be complete extroverts, and you don't need to maybe do it to the point that we might be doing it. But hey, if you can help a fellow coworker that might be in the cubicle sitting next to you, and you're seeing signs that they might have dyslexic thinking capabilities, then pass along some knowledge, pass along some resources, spread the word. I think that's the way, that one of the best ways we're going to be able to destigmatize this is to say, hey, you know what, this is a good thing. This is a good thing, and sharing the knowledge. It will just open up tremendous opportunities for individuals. So yeah.
Well said. Well said. Oliver, thank you for being on. Really enjoyed the conversation today.
Thank you very much, Kashi.